History is written in textbooks, displayed in museums, passed down in family stories. But it's also buried and marked with headstones if you know where to look. Or in this case, aim to restore what's been overlooked. Rochelle Bush is a historian and co-lead on the Salem Chapel Underground Railroad Cemetery project, and she joins us now on the line from St. Catharines to explain. Welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so in communities including Niagara-on-the-Lake and Canfield, which is just south of Hamilton, historians are working to recognize Ontario's early Black history through restoring and protecting burial grounds. Tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing in St. Catharines.
So that's a great question, and thank you. In St. Catharines, I have a co-partner, Adam Montgomery, and under the auspices of the Salem Chapel BME Church, which is affectionately known as the Harriet Tubman Church, we're working on the Victoria Lawn Underground Railroad Cemetery project. So it's a walking tour that we're trying to implement in Victoria Lawn. So it began because we conduct tours in Victoria Lawn Cemetery, and the main person there, the main attraction, is Reverend Anthony Burns. But there's other people that are buried out at the cemetery, such as Harriet Tubman's descendants, some of her nieces, and other historic figures. So we want to embrace that and make it a larger tour.
Tell us a little bit about some of the early Black settlers buried in the Victoria Lawn Cemetery. You named a few, including, of course, a descendant of Harriet Tubman's, but tell us a little bit about the Reverend as well.
Okay, so Reverend Anthony Burns, his escape from Virginia in 1854 in May incited the largest abolitionist revolt in U.S. history. So again, he's part of the Niagara Freedom Trail, so he's the main attraction at Victoria Lawn Cemetery. So when he was captured in Boston or arrested, he was returned to enslavement, and from there, it incited the largest abolitionist revolt. So his Friends of the Baptist Faith purchased his freedom, and then he eventually made his way to St. Catharines in 1860.
All right, I do have a photo. This is a photo of the grave marker for Amanda Stewart Gale's Taylors, and this is a before and after of what your team had recovered. Who is she, and how did you find her stone? Because there's an amazing story here, because the photo of the before, I'm seeing roots. I'm seeing essentially the bottom of a tree. This was buried underground. Tell me about the story of how you uncovered this tombstone.
So we did a lot of research at Victoria Lawn Cemetery in order to find a lot of the people that are buried there. And with the Ontario Genealogical Society records, we had to cross-reference the location of where the folks are buried, because Amanda Gale Taylors, so it's Amanda Stewart Gale's Taylors, she was actually documented as being in an unmarked grave. So after doing all the research and thinking that we located her, we had an expert come in who probed and actually found her gravesite. So that was a eureka moment, because Amanda Stewart Gale's Taylor is a niece of Harriet Tubman's.
That is very, very neat. Now, I have another photo. This is a picture of cemetery restoration expert Ernest in the corner there working on his stone. He's using a brush. He's got a brush in his hand. This is Henry Ballard's stone. Tell us, what does your team do with the stones once they are recovered? Because this is a very delicate process. This isn't something that, hey, there's a stone and you pull it out. To walk us through sort of that process.
Yes, and you're absolutely right, Jeyan. It is a delicate process. So what Al was doing is he was cleaning off the stone just to make sure we had the correct stone. And then what he will do is remove the stone, clean it, and then stand it upright again in its base area. So that's what he was doing. And just to give you a little bit of background about Henry Ballard, he was one of the original 5 trustees who purchased the BME property, which was formerly the AME Church in St. Catharines.
All right. I do have a question about finances. Who pays for this work? Because it is very tedious work. It does take a lot of time. Is this the municipality? Is this money out of your own pockets? How does it work?
So that's a great question as well. We have a GoFundMe going. So private donors are helping us with this restoration project. So no funding is coming from the city. No funding is coming from the province. No government institutions. It's all private donors who are paying for this.
Explain that to me. Is there normally funding and money that goes towards keeping burial sites sort of pristine and sort of walkable and for people to actually visit? Or is this, because this is sort of a new project, that there is no funding behind it?
Exactly. So because it's a new project, there's no funding behind it. But the cemetery, of course, because it's a municipal cemetery, the city maintains the actual cemetery. But for something that we're doing, it would have to come out of our own pocket.
All right. Now, it's been over 150 years since the cemetery opened. Why do you think this is the first restoration project dedicated to prominent Black individuals buried here?
Okay, great question, Jeyan. To be honest, nobody was interested in the past except us, except Black folks. And it was actually me. And, I don't want to take all the credit for it, or don't want to sit here and act like I'm tooting my own horn. But I just wanted to amplify the people that were in Victoria Lawn Cemetery for tourism. So primarily for tourism, even though the cemetery is a sacred destination where people go and they reflect about the past and about their loved ones, I wanted to add more to the tourism trail. So that's exactly why we're doing it from my perspective, as well as honoring and the sacred memory of the people that are buried there, because they are courageous freedom seekers.
Just off the top, I had mentioned Niagara-on-the-Lake, efforts also in Canfield. Is there a collective or a push more and more to understand and remember our early Black settler communities across Ontario? Is this seen as a collective? Was there inspiration from other projects that you were hearing, or is this sort of individuals just taking it upon themselves and groups kind of pushing forward?
Well, pretty much it's individuals taking it upon themselves and pushing forward. I can't say that we all know each other, but we all know of each other. But a lot of it stems from Northern Ontario as well as Southwestern Ontario. So the folks out there preserving grave sites, or doing the best that they can to ask the agencies to protect the grave sites. So here in Niagara, it's individuals doing it on their own, as well as out in Canfield.
You have a family connection to one of the early settlers buried in Victoria Lawn. This is a photo of your great-great-grandmother, Margaret Harper's tombstone. Tell us a little bit about what it's like to have an ancestor buried there, someone that you haven't met, but there is that deep, deep connection. And obviously with the work that you're doing to preserve, what is it like to have someone there?
Oh, it's an honor for me to have an ancestor buried in Victoria Lawn Cemetery, because it is such a historic cemetery. So for me to go out there and reflect, and yes, Margaret Harper is my great grandmother, but then also her children are buried out there as well. So I have my ancestors there. And what's important about Margaret is she was the first lady at the Salem Chapel BME Church for a period of time when her husband, my 2 times great grandfather, Reverend James Harper, was the minister in charge at the Salem Chapel when Harriet Tubman was attending the church. But for me, I go out there, and I go out there quite frequently. I'm not going to, lie about that. Maybe twice a week, just to reflect on everything that took place in Victoria Lawn Cemetery and who's actually buried there, because I just marvel at it.
All right, in the last minute that we have, I do want to ask, you mentioned off the top sort of the ultimate goal here is these walking tours. You already do these walking tours, but once you've restored these stones, that walking tour in the cemetery itself, tell us a little bit about it and the ultimate goal of the whole project here.
Okay, so the ultimate goal of the whole project is to provide a free public walking tour for those who are interested. More importantly, it's to remember those people who are actually buried there. Because with regards to the freedom seekers, they went through the horrors and hardships of enslavement. Many separated from their families, and they made the decision to flee to Canada, so to this British colony, and settle here in St. Catharines. So just understanding that fact that they were enslaved, and then they had to escape from enslavement to make it to Canada, and then establish a new life all over again, and that they're buried at Victoria Lawn Cemetery. That's amazing. It's remarkable that, folks could actually do that, because today, how many of us would be able to meet that challenge?
That's true. Rochelle, we are going to leave it there. Thank you so much for your great story, and thank you so much for what you do. Really appreciate you taking the time on our program.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.